This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, go. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, of course, to the extent that I have any control or any of us have control over technology, I want to apologize. We're going to do the best we can and hopefully sort this out. We have a lengthy governance committee meeting, should last all of about 30 seconds. Today's governance and regular meetings at the Hudson River Black River Regulating District are occurring virtually, as well as here at the Sacandaga Field Office and our Hudson River Area Office in Albany. The board meeting agenda is available at HRBRRD.ny.gov under board meetings. We ask that you please close other programs on your computer or phone, silence your cell phone, suspend your video, and mute your audio when not speaking. This is especially important for today when obviously we've had a great number of virtual attendees. The conference organizer will monitor the program's chat function for public comment, but given the number of participants today, we also encourage questions and comments from the public, and you can email them to HRAO@HRBRRD.ny.gov, and you will receive a direct reply. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Leslie, if you'd be kind enough to roll call.
Committee Chair Jeffrey Rosenthal.
Present.
Committee Member Senate DeWitt.
Present.
Albert Hayes.
Here.
Board Chair Mark Finkel.
Here.
Board Member Timothy Reagan.
Here.
Board Member Richard Bird. And Board Member Alfred Candido.
Here.
Executive Director John Callahan.
Here.
General Counsel Robert Leslie, present. Chief Fiscal Officer Timothy Minitra.
It's not on camera, but he can view us.
Okay. Chief Engineer Robert Fulton.
Here.
And Compliance Officer Stephanie Rizicki.
Here.
Mr. Bird is on the screen at this point.
Okay,
Mr. Bird, can you wave if you can hear us?
give us a wave.
That's a no.
He is not able to hear, but he is not a member of this committee. All committee members are present and accounted for.
I'll entertain an application to adopt or revise today's governance committee meeting agenda. Any second, Ken DeWitt?
DeWitt and Candido.
Yes.
Mr. Candido, you're not a member of this committee.
Yes, sir. Governance.
Yes, you are. Sorry
How
about that.
quickly they forget, you know?
Maybe last.
Okay.
Reason into this. Just need to vote now, Councilor?
Well, I guess there's or do we need to vote that we're not going to adjourn or approve? Or we're going to approve
Approve
last,
the agenda without revision.
and we're going to now make a motion for the June 8th.
Well, you need a vote on
Okay.
your.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Okay, good, we're not going to change the agenda. Now I'll make an application for a motion for approval of last governance committee meeting minutes on the 8th of June.
I'll make that.
Any second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any discussion? Motion passes. New business. Says Mr. Callahan, I understand it's a very simple.
Very brief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This motion is simply to amend the existing bylaws, simply to reflect a new mailing address and physical address for the Hudson River Area Office in Albany from 350 Northern Boulevard to 575 Broadway. We ask for the board's support on this.
Any need for a discussion? I'll entertain a motion that we advance this to the board. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That'll be advanced to the full board meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the governance committee. Any second? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Governance committee is adjourned.
We're done. It's easy.
Ready to move. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, Mr. Leslie?
Board Chairman Mark Finkel,
Here.
First Vice Chair Jeffrey Rosenthal,
Here.
Second Vice Chair Kenneth DeWitt,
Here.
Board Members Albert Hayes,
Here.
Richard Byrd, and Alfred Candido.
Here.
Mr. Reagan.
Here.
Executive Director John Callahan.
Here.
General Counsel Robert Leslie, present. Chief Engineer Robert Fulton.
Here.
He indicated he's here. Chief Fiscal Officer Timothy Minicha is
Here.
not on camera. And Compliance Officer Stephanie Rizicki.
Here.
She indicated she is here. Will do.
Okay, I need a motion to revise today's agenda. Some of you have an agenda with the reorganization item. We want to remove that. We're going to amend the Indian Lake item, and we're going to add an executive session to go over personnel to the end of the meeting. I need a motion to make that change.
I'll make that motion. I don't know if they need to be in separate motions, Mr. Leslie,
They
but
do not.
I will make that motion to encompass all of the applications that Mr. Chair has suggested.
Second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, I guess we can't do, well, maybe from here.
Public will ask if anybody.
Any public comment from anyone?
We do have-
Please.
Hello, my name is Mike Hopkins. I was here about a year ago and discussed dock placement on lots that I have for sale on Elmer Brown Road, John Jacobson. We kind of tabled to have a discussion with the APA. That took place this July. We actually came out and did a site visit. Prior to that, the regulating district had granted a dock to one of these 4 lots that we're discussing. And we met in July to confirm that the other 3 could have docks. Phone call from them last week saying, yes, we agree that the docks are not going to be placed in wetlands, so you can have a dock in APA's eyes. And I'm just here today to make sure, that you guys are agreeing with APA's recommendation, which is no recommendation.
Yeah.
At that meeting was one of your representatives, Dan Kiskis. He had indicated that he would follow what APA wanted. So I just want to make sure that that is still the case.
I can address that, Mr. Chairman, if you see fit.
Please.
Yeah, so, yeah, I can confirm that, Mr. Hopkins. Yeah, as you said, Dan Kiskis said at that site visit with some of their staffers that if they change their permit conditions relative to your site, we would adhere to that. The only reason that we have not, provided the dock permits for those sites is the specific prohibition on that permit. And so just as you say, we followed up with them following that site visit, asked for them to provide us something directly, which given your conversation with them, we do expect. We followed up again with them yesterday, and we have every expectation that they'll do that. And then there's no, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, there's no other hindrance or restriction that
Okay, great.
with us as far as issuing the documents.
Great.
The
We're
only
waiting.
hindrance, of course, is unfortunately it's after Labor Day and
Well, funny there, I showed that lot to somebody this morning. They made an offer with the contingency that a dock permit would be allowed. I said, well, I knew this morning, so I'll let you know. But it sounds like we're good, so thank you for your time.
thanks for coming too.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Any other, anybody else? Oh, okay. Okay,
Thank you very much for coming, gentlemen.
yep. Okay, any other public comment from anybody? Okay. With that, I'd like approval of our July 13th regular board meeting minutes.
I'll move.
I'll second. Mr. Ray.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Next is the report of our executive director, Mr. Callahan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My report appears on pages 32 and 33. You have a chance to review. Just note a couple of highlights. Successful training this past weekend by the 109th Airlift Wing of the Air National Guard here at our facility. Just a quick note from those folks. Your property is by far the best place we've ever had to facilitate our water survival training. I want to pass along a very sincere thank you to all members at the facility as they were friendly and quick to offer assistance, especially Mr. Ioli. So we came together to facilitate that. Always good to help out people that are in that line of work. Issued our newsletter earlier last month. Well received. Nearly 650 tons of riprap stone placed in the last couple of months with our workload operations. We were benefited, obviously, with the higher water levels to keep the workload running. So certainly a high water mark for us in terms of the riprap shoreline work over the last few years. And I just also want to commend a lot of the staff. Backlog of nearly 200 permits going back to last year, owing to a perfect storm of the pandemic, the time we were out, and the related exponential increase in sales around the reservoir, which everybody has said is beyond anything they've seen before. So we're working that number down to about 140. We'll suspend issuing new permits this year in October, and then just take any additional sales, continue to process, and be able to catch up next year. So a great job, and we've had our dam operator, Matt Ginter, continuing to assist with the permit crew to catch up on those. And just a note, as Tim Minichia will note in his report, as it does almost every month, where it looks like we're a little bit ahead of where we were last year, the last couple of years, just continuing to identify any opportunities for savings and to put ourselves in a better fiscal ground, which I think probably over the last decade, we're in the best shape we've been in terms of being able to meet not only our operational obligations, but being able to finally move ahead with some of these very important capital improvement programs, one of which you'll hear detailed today. So that's with that, Mr. Chairman, I invite any questions from the board.
Any questions? Good. We will move to contract actions. First one is the Indian Lake Dam Contract C032013, Amendment Number 5, Final Design and Construction Phase Services and Leakage Field Inspection, and modify the scope of the work and fee. I don't know how we're going to do that, but Mr. Boltan.
Mr. Boltan should be calling this number directly, the conference line at SFO, and we should hear from him momentarily.
I'm connected and I can hear you. If at any point you can't hear me, let me know.
Acquaint Mr. Boltan with the number, or is Stephanie going to transfer him in? Let's find out.
So you can't hear me, John?
I can hear you, Rob, but I don't think that they can.
All right, so I'm going to have to call in separately. I thought we straightened that out.
2117 is the conference.
We can hear
Hey,
you.
Rob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Is he calling this number?
I've got him on here.
He's not able to call this number?
I am already connected to the conference line. You guys just can't hear me. I can do one of two things. I can call the conference line, or I can call a separate SFO number.
I'll call. What's his extension? Ask him to hang up.
Rob, he's asking you to hang up. What's your extension?
If I do that, I'm going to have to disconnect entirely my audio from the meeting.
That's okay for these purposes.
Okay. All right. Very good.
What's his extension?
What's your extension?
It's 1531.
1531.
Excuse my reach here.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Fultan.
Yeah, no problem. I've been able to hear everything you've said thus far, so hopefully this will be a much better connection, me to you. So, yes, as indicated by the chairman, there are two memos accompanying two proposals for Indian Lake associated with, well, the first is associated with the final design and construction support services. The second one is associated with a recent request by the district for an inspection of some issues that have been occurring and an inspection conducted by Bergman. Both proposals are from Bergman PC, who is our current consultant for the remediation project at Indian Lake. And I'll start with the final design construction support services memorandum. The board will remember that our phase one project began back in April of 2014. We brought Bergman on board to conduct an engineering assessment and make recommendations for remedial measures. They completed a safety inspection. That safety inspection was reviewed, submitted DEC in 2015. The inspection report and engineering assessment was accepted, and DEC issued an email notice of that acceptance of the safety inspection report and the first engineering assessment in September of 2020. Phase two of the project centered on Bergman's development and evaluation of alternatives to improve the Indian Lake Dam performance and recommend improvements to address identified deficiencies, and which would also bring the facility into compliance with the Department of Environmental Conservation dam safety regulations. And just as an overview, a review of our identified safety compliance issues, which we need to address at Indian Lake, the bullet items on my memo outline very succinctly, I think. Insufficient hydraulic capacity to pass the design flood, low-level outlet discharge capacity is inadequate. We have inadequate stability of the spillway, inadequate embankment stability, seepage through some of the structures. There are gates that are partially or non-functioning, and abandoned or inoperable log sluice or bulkhead structure. That structure is actually the one that the second memorandum refers to. And then smaller items, leakage, seepage, flow collection monitoring, and the geometry of the earthen embankment actually doesn't conform to DEC's current regulations with regard to its cross-sectional configuration. So phase three of the project involves the final design and the construction support services. Staff had recommended Bergman to develop a proposal which detailed the third phase of this remediation project. Bergman's proposal, which is attached to my memorandum, identifies the tasks necessary to complete the final design, permitting, construction contract documents, and to provide observation of the construction activity to verify contractor compliance with the construction contract. Bergman proposes to provide planning, design, project management, and construction support required to allow the district to complete construction of repair necessary to bring the facility into compliance with DEC dam safety regulations. And obviously, the district staff recommends acceptance of Bergman's proposal and seeks board authorization by resolution to amend the scope of work and the term of contract C03-2013 to include the tasks presented in Bergman's final design and construction support proposal dated August 13th, 2021, and to increase the project budget by $1,332,116 to a total price of $1,637,917, and to extend the termination date of the contract to December 31st, 2025, and to authorize the executive director to execute an amendment to the contract. And I will be happy to answer any questions the board might have on Bergman's proposal.
Rob, maybe it's obvious, but I guess this amendment includes resolving the identified safety compliance issues that are outlined right there.
Correct. Correct. At the conclusion of the final design, and as we enter the bid phase for construction, we will have a full plan for remediation, which will bring Indian Lake into compliance with DEC dam safety regulations.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? If not, I'd like a motion to accept contract C.
Mr. Chairman, I should move to the second memorandum, as the resolution references the second memorandum and additional fee proposal for a request that we made to Bergman, if I may.
Okay, yeah.
So the second
Bob,
memorandum.
can I ask one question before you start on that?
Yeah.
I know we had money that was set aside by the state for the Cochranville Dam. I don't remember hearing anything about here. The funding in that for this, is that funding we have, or is that funding we expect to receive? So Mr. Reagan and Tim Anicha can elaborate further in his report as well. But this is one of the two projects, Indian Lake and Hawkinsville, for which we are going to do a single issuance and borrow those funds. Part of the overall calculation here is how we were going to go forward with Cochranville, as it was such an expensive project, and also these other projects. We couldn't borrow for everything. So the external state funding that has been secured thus far, which is just the initial funding for Cochranville, allows us to incorporate bonding for these two projects in the 3-year budget and still have a balance.
And then so just again, because I'm new and I don't understand all this really well yet, but then, so our budget goes up to compensate for the investments that we're making, and then that goes back to the individual counties.
I think
the percentage, or?
I think you'll see that Mr. Minicha will report during his report
Okay.
that this is within the existing 3-year spending plan and borrowing that has been approved by the board last year. Thank you.
Okay,
If there are any further questions on the final design, I'll move to the bulkhead leakage memorandum. On August 16th of this year, the district staff observed an increase in leakage near the abandoned bulkhead gate at Indian Lake Dam. And staff immediately requested our engineering consultant, Bergman, to provide an assessment and conduct a field investigation of the condition of the bulkhead. Bergman conducted the site investigation, visual inspection on August 18th, and Bergman's engineering staff made observation of the leakage at the bulkhead structure, as well as leakage at the spillway and the stone dam. Effectively, they reviewed, for the purposes of leakage, all of the structures at Indian Lake at the time of their site visit. Bergman staff compared field notes and observations recorded during its safety inspections conducted back in 2013 and 2014 to the current conditions of the structures. They submitted a trip report on September 3rd to the district, which concluded that the number and magnitude of leaks present is indicative of an ongoing deterioration. However, the current conditions observed do not require emergency action or intervention at this time. So while we observed an unusual and an increase in leakage through one element of the structure, this being the bulkhead, there was determined no need to take action. They did make a recommendation to continue our regular monitoring and documenting of the significant leak points, which we do on a daily basis, and will continue until the remediation is complete. The bulkhead gate, as I did previously mention in the first memo, is scheduled for repair and replacement as part of the facility rehabilitation program anticipated to begin in the summer of 2023. These services were unanticipated, as was the leakage, and are not included in the current scope of work or fee of the contract with Bergman. And Bergman provided a fee and scope proposal for the field inspection and the trip report that's attached to my memorandum. And staff is recommending acceptance of Bergman's proposal, seeks board authorization by resolution to amend the scope of contract C03-2013 to include the tasks presented in the investigation of emergent leak at Broadband proposal dated September 8th, 2021, to increase the project budget by $7,076. So in addition to the amount referenced in my first memorandum of $1,332,116, we also like to request authorization to increase an additional $7,076, which would bring the entire contract price to a total of $1,644,993, and ask that the board authorize the executive director to amend the contract in that amount. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have concerning the bulkhead structure.
Any other questions or comments or if not, a motion to that effect? I'm not going to repeat it.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Secondly is a resolution authorizing the executive director to enter agreements for broadband and phone services on the third floor of 575 Broadway in Albany. Mr. Manish.
Do we have Mr. Manish?
Mr. Chair,
Oh. Hi, Tim.
good morning, everyone. At its meeting in July, the board authorized the regulating district to enter into an agreement with Fuller Road Management Corporation for office space at Kiernan Plaza and with the Albany Parking Authority for parking space in downtown Albany. This morning, we seek the board's approval to enter into multi-year agreements with First Light for dedicated fiber access and 8x8 for phone service at this location. The estimated cost of these services is included in the resolution. We expect to save approximately $6,000 over the life of the respective agreements in comparison to what we have been paying. We believe the dedicated fiber and voice over internet protocol service will also yield qualitative improvements. I should also mention that no phone numbers will change in the Hudson River area office. For all these reasons, we have to approve this resolution in accordance with the regulating district's procurement policy. And we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Seems pretty straightforward. Any questions, comments? If not, a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Staff and committee reports. Governance Committee, Mr. Rosenthal.
This is simple. You heard Mr. Callahan. We're moving for board vote, something that came from the governance committee to change the address of our location.
Motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Next report, General Counsel, Mr. Leslie.
Well, I've been working with DC to craft an agreement so that the regulating district's role overseeing the project administered by OGS will be paid for by DEC for the project at Conklinville. Mr. Callahan signed that agreement yesterday, so we're in good shape there. We're also continuing to work with Council for Brookfield to secure financial data to support efforts undertaken by Walden and NewGen to value the regulating district's 56 feet ahead at Conklinville in anticipation of entering into a new reservoir operating agreement with Brookfield. I would note that the Inspector General referred a complaint by a permit holder regarding the location and orientation of an access permit boundary. I conducted an investigation and found no wrongdoing. And in fact, the permit holder, when we finally spoke with he and his wife on the phone on a couple of occasions, met with him on a couple of occasions, and finally had Mr. Kiskis and Ms. Thorne out to resurvey his line. He agreed that, in fact, there was no nefarious intent. He just didn't understand the map. And we were able to convince him that the permit was oriented in the right spot. We closed that matter with a memo back supplied to the Inspector General's office. They seem satisfied. We've also secured the new agreement for a new office space in Albany. Mr. Callahan also signed that. We had 6 FOIA requests during the reporting period. There were no appeals. A couple of them are kind of extensive. Finally, we did get a request from the Town of Mayfield Planning Board for our acquiescence to their conduct as lead agent for the review of the project advanced by Mr. Winnie on Woods Hollow Road. It's an RV project. Our response is in process, but likely to be that we have no objection to that agency serving as the lead agency for the State Environmental Quality Review Act, a review that has to take place before this project were to move forward. That is my report. I'm
Very good.
available for
Any questions or comments?
I have just one question on that. I get a lot of inquiries. Where is the jurisdiction of the regulating district in that project? Where's the permit going to be?
so
Deep into what we know as Muscles Harbor?
there are docks proposed, which would be on the state land, and there is a boat ramp, which is projected to be on the state land. As far as the balance of activities, the map that they showed us, the map that the planning board showed us as part and parcel of their request for lead agency status wasn't detailed enough for me to be able to discern whether other elements of the project would be on state land, but it would be very unlikely that they would. For instance,
No, but they're seeking a permit.
they're seeking an access permit to start,
Right.
and work permits for both the.
Just clarify, Counselor, they haven't submitted any kind of application.
No, I understand, but somewhere there is a physical connection between that project and the water over which we have jurisdiction for permits.
Right.
And I was only, because of my familiarity with Muscles Harbor, scratch my head and want to know where there's a permit, where there's a possibility of a permit in Muscles Harbor. For those of us that are boaters, it's a rather precarious way in and out of Muscles Harbor.
It's partially in the park, partially out of the park. The site itself.
That is true. The blue line depicting the Adirondack State Park kind of comes down as a piece of pie wedge in the middle of their project, not quite touching, I believe, state lands under ours jurisdiction, but certainly traversing their project. So APA is probably going to be involved as well. But the short answer to your question is there's an access permit if they believe that they have access to waters that would support a dock. And
Might support a
work
dock,
permits
won't
for the
support a
docks
boat.
and for a boat launch that they propose, which I think they would advance up through DEC.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Compliance Officer, Mr. Zicki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report can be found on page 108. Quarterly compliance audits at the Chattanooga and Albany offices. In all instances, appropriate measures are in place and proper processes are being practiced. You concluded our seasonal employee program. It was very successful, and you're fortunate to have the opportunity to work with three very professional and hardworking individuals. We did exit interviews, and they provided some excellent feedback that we can apply to next year's program. Finally, on pages 109 through 111 are the contact status sheets. They are put in the board packet for your review, and they satisfy the public authority requirement. If you have any questions about my report, if not, that completes it.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much. Next, our Fiscal Officer, Mr. Minicha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You can find the CFO report on page 112 of your packet. Most noteworthy development that occurred since the July board meeting, resolution of the claim we made back in April to the regulating district's prime policy insurance carrier, Travelers. Since the initial filing with them, we've shared hundreds of pages of documents and interacted with them regularly. On July 26th, Travelers notified the regulating district that its claim has been confirmed. In consultation with Arthur J. Gallagher, the regulating district's insurance broker, the regulating district accepted a settlement from Travelers on August 5th. The regulating district received and deposited a check in the amount of $47,832.58 on August 11th. The regulating district has also sought and received reimbursement for health insurance premiums from Mr. Ferrara in the amount of $1,450.33 for the January through July 2021 period. We will continue to charge him as we do other retirees for their share of health insurance going forward. When combined, the regulating district has received to date a total of $49,282.91 from Travelers and Mr. Ferrara. This represents 98% of what we have sought once the $5,000 deductible associated with the crime policy is factored in. We continue to work on implementing the other recommendations in the Inspector General's report, as you can see on page 113 of your packet. And on an unrelated note, please mark your calendar for November 9, as Nora Galeros of Galeros Robinson, the regulating district's independent auditor, will join us for an audit committee meeting to discuss the fiscal year 2020-2021 audit. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on any aspect of regulating district finances.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much. Last staff report, Chief Engineer, Mr. Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report begins on page 154, I believe. Which we summarize, and a lot of rain is I think the only thing I have to say. We had inflow at Great Sacandaga Lake and Indian Lake Reservoir of 369 and 442% of historic average in the month of August, and we made significantly larger than historic average releases too, 187%, 222% respectively. The Black River area was similar, although slightly less. Stillwater Reservoir received about 240% of historic average inflow. That being said, we made some significant releases. I think there's a lucky part to that. increased inflow and precip that we received in those storms is that it came at one of the driest parts of the year. And once the immediate rainfall moved through the system, all the rivers became quite dry, relatively speaking, quite dry. And we were able to continue and are continuing releases, such that Sacandaga is at the target elevation. And Indian Lake is actually about 1.5 feet below our target, although fairly close to historic average. And Stillwater remains about 2.5 feet over our operation target elevation and about 5 feet above historic average. I don't see any long-term impact or even shorter term impact now from this point forward, coming out of those tropical depressions and heavy rainfall that we did receive over the last 30 days or so. I'll be happy to answer any questions on operation if you have.
Yeah, that'll be a difficult month for you, I'm telling you. Nice job. Any questions? Thank you very much for the report. Now we're going to move on to a discussion on the Conklinville Dam repairs, and I think that's why everybody is on the line today. And I'm going to turn the discussion over again to Mr. Fulton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I issued a summary in the board package, which is about 6 pages long. I'll be referring to that briefly, but I put together a very brief summary slideshow of the highlights of both the work that we've completed to date, as well as a summary of where we're moving on Conklinville's rehab and rehabilitation. As the first slide indicates, we're looking at remediation of the spillway foundation, the concrete structures, and the embankment itself. A brief overview of our history of remediation and engineering since even before 2005, but we've completed evaluations of the spillway, stability analysis of the spillway, conducted some repair along the way on the dowel valves, assessed the condition of the dowel valves. We completed geotechnical inspections and had supplemental engineering assessments of the structures, the dowel valves and the siphons. And more recently, had Schnabel Engineering complete work through their spillway foundation remediation and spillway repair engineering services contract, a conceptual design for remediation of a portion of the structures at Conklinville. That portion of the structures are referred to as zones 5 through 8. They're included on the diagram on page 1 of the 5-page handout that I gave you, which shows zone 1 through 8, the zone 5 through 8 being the spillway channel, the rock foundation, and the intake portion of the intake at EJ West, which is owned by the state. Overall, the project will extend the useful life of Conklinville. That's the main purpose. We expect engineering, final design, some conceptual design first for certain elements, but then final design to take up to 24 months. And about 36 months following that, for the most part, following the engineering design, and lasting at this point an estimate of about 3 seasons. The work is occurring between the district and collaboration between the district and the Office of General Services. And General Services and the Construction Design Division is taking the lead on soliciting proposals and for selection of a final design engineer. They will also solicit proposals and bids for construction, and in any phase of, or excuse me, any need in this phase of construction or final design and construction that may come along with funding coming through the New York State budget for the work. There are 5, the second handout I gave you has the slides. There are 5 main elements of remediation: the spillway channel, the rock foundation, concrete structures, including the abutment, outlet, and end channel walls, embankment, and the dowel valves themselves. The spillway will be remediated similarly to its remediation completed back in 1985, which are the lower right 2 photographs, including removal of deteriorated concrete and the replacement of that concrete. At that time, we will also anchor the spillway to the rock foundation and then finish a spillway with new concrete and repair all the joints, construction joints that are in the structure. The spillway channel, it includes a lining on the upstream side of the spillway. That lining is going to be repaired, as well as filling of the voids in the concrete, or excuse me, the rock below the concrete spillway, and a grouting of that foundation structure to minimize or eliminate leakage from the channel through the rock foundation. Concrete structures include a retaining wall at the end of the north side of the embankment, the outlet structure itself, and the wall, or the channel wall, used to convey flow to the outlet structure and the spillway. The embankment, primary concern and interest there includes continued seepage that we have been monitoring for decades, and somewhat to leakage that's occurring at the north end and seepage through the embankment. It's certainly consistent with what you would expect for a 100-year-old structure, but should be addressed, and we feel it's appropriate time to do that. This work is part of zones 1 through 4. There has not been a full assessment of these structures, both the abutment wall, the outlet itself, and the embankment. The part of the solicitation of services that OGS is conducting will include, in its scope, an assessment of both the embankment, the construction of the concrete embankment, abutment wall, and the outlet structure, taking us to eventually a final design for remediation of those structures. And lastly, the dowel valves, they, like the rest of the structure, are approaching 100 years old. Mechanical mechanisms, as well as the valve bodies, are showing deterioration, typical oxidation for a metal structure that's been in place for almost 100 years. And again, there's been no thorough assessment or remediation recommendation made at this point. That would also be part of the solicitation and services that are procured by OGS, completing an assessment and recommendation, and then final design for the dowel valves, replacement of the dowel valves themselves. In terms of schedule, as I mentioned, the engineering work will begin in 22 and continue through 24 with some concurrent construction anticipated occurring in zones 5 through 8, and followed by the completion of engineering, final design in 24 for the zone 1 through 4, embankment and dowel valve replacement, and construction in 24 and 25 is anticipated for those elements of the facility. In terms of operation, we continue to stress to our consultant and have underlined and stressed to OGS that minimizing impact to the operation of the reservoir is of most importance. We don't have any plan at this point or indication of a need to make any kind of unique or unusual drawdown. At this point, we anticipate being able to and would focus the attention of our final design consultant as well as that of the contractor on completing the work within the normal drawdown and operation scheme for the reservoir. And I don't at this point anticipate that changing, and certainly it can easily become a part of the process to avoid a drawdown outside of the operation under the offer of settlement. And so that is our plan with regard to operation during construction. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, Mr. Fulton, I appreciate your presentation, which was done at, of course, my request and the request of the board. And the background, of course, is that several of the board members, in fact, are permit holders. And we have received numbers of personal inquiries. I think the record, it's important to reflect this. And you've addressed a major concern, which social media is wonderful in perpetuating lies and half-truths and misinformation. And that apparently now becomes the norm of understanding in our knowledge base. So, Mr. Fulton, again, I appreciate you setting forth the truth. Our goal as a board, collectively and individually, is to continue this transparent approach of, on the one hand, what absolutely is necessary to be done to protect the lake and protect the dam, and balance that with, or equal importance, let our constituents know, the permit holders, we are not draining the lake. We are not doing mass mining and dredging of the lake. And we are not undertaking conduct so as to defeat the recreational benefits that this lake provides to permit holders and to the communities that are supported by the lake community. And I just, I'm taking these few minutes on behalf of the board to let the public know that is the board's goal, to continue to be as transparent as possible. Information will be in the newsletter continually, and with that, I asked for that so we could open up a discussion. There must be hundreds of people that have concerns about this. So with that, I'll yield.
Yeah, so our next, we're going to change the name to the Sacandaga Creek next.
Well, let's.
No, I'm just kidding.
I would like, if you guys could put together a one pager. And the details that we just went through. And just the way you explained it, I mean, everything was very, here's what it is. And I think this project schedule on the back, so on the front,
Critical.
that way we all would have the same information and we'd have it and hand it.
Absolutely.
Give it to somebody and, you know, get them out and say, okay. And then, like you mentioned, I think Rob mentioned it in his presentation, there's no plans to change the quality of recreation or anything on the reservoir. If something were to happen, I mean, I think we need to put something there. If
Well,
something to happen,
Nobody knows the future.
yeah, we will continue to communicate. This is the plans right now.
That's correct. I agree with you.
If I could add on to that, you're absolutely correct. Even beyond our need to communicate to the public, the process that's required through our Federal Energy Regulatory Commission licensing, the fact that we have the offer of settlement in place concerning the operation of the reservoir means that there will be an extensive and lengthy process, I'm sure, and with more than sufficient opportunities for comments and discussion, should there become a need for a drawdown outside of the offer of settlement and to facilitate construction. And that will not happen in a vacuum, and it needs to be approved and reviewed by numerous agencies before it could even be considered.
And is very unlikely.
And is very unlikely, yeah.
We'll certainly put that one pager together, Mr. Reagan. I think Mr. Rosenthal said it best at the initial award. The good news is you got 20 million for Coppinville. The bad news is you got 20 million for Coppinville.
Well, and concomitantly with that, they, in the budget, $20 million, what people don't understand is, okay, try to spend it.
Sure.
You don't spend this tomorrow. I mean, Rob Fulton, thank you very much
Thank you.
for outlining that.
Yeah.
We're talking about a project well into 2025. So
Correct.
it's
Yeah.
not happening tomorrow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, next I need a resolution for our next board meeting, October 12th in Lowville. I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
No second.
Mr. Chairman, before you vote, if I could say quickly, we're going to do that meeting at 11 o'clock also. And we're also, for members who have not been there, going to incorporate a tour of the Black River Field Office and Stillwater Dam following the meeting. And we expect some of our Jefferson County associates and friends to join us on that as well.
Okay. Did I have a motion? Somebody?
We got a motion and a second.
Say, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to go into executive session to talk personnel matters, and there will be no business conducted afterwards.
We'll only return to adjourn.
Yeah,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all very much for bearing with us. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties,
Gina, can I-
and thank you very much.